Morning. It's Reverend Mike Camper from the First Presbyterian Church of Troy. Happy Father's Day. Um, it's really best if sermons start with the Bible and classical Christian doctrine. But this morning, I'm going to start this one with an unconscious facial expression I found myself giving recently. It happened the week of May 19th. I was at Lake George for this year's Early Ministry Institute. There were about 50 people in the room, 35 of them who haven't been in ministry very long, and the rest of us were there to support them. The theme of the week was conflict in the church. Someone was presenting a case study of some person who was only loosely connected to their church, making demands on the session and then attacking the pastor when they didn't get their way. The situation was being discussed by various people in the room. I was listening. A male pastor said something, I actually don't remember what, and then a female pastor said, "I'm grateful to hear a male pastor calling out toxic masculinity." Shortly afterward, another male pastor, a muscular guy with a deeper voice than mine, said, "Men cry too." At that point, I became aware that I was pointedly rolling my eyes, and not just the eyes, there was kind of a little head action with it too. I don't think anyone saw me, at least no one said anything. But that was the foundation for this sermon when I consider men and masculinity. Father's Day, right after I've had a birthday, might be the only day I can get away with it, so let's give it a go. A Google check on the phrase toxic masculinity can take you a lot of interesting places, some of them pretty severe. A 2021 article in Psychology Today references a horrible kidnapping, rape, and murder of an English woman by a man. It also connected these events with the Me Too movement, and the article concluded, "Why haven't we listened yet? Why are there still men who are surprised to hear women's daily experiences with misogyny? How many more stories of rape, violence, and murder must we face before we confront the tools of toxic masculinity?" The page had a link to a good self-assessment quiz about anger and another to help you find a therapist to help you heal from anger. Well and good. Things that need to be said. And yet, this article too wanted to make me roll my eyes. For the record, I am most definitely against rape, murder, and misogyny. And while I'm at it, yes, I know that men cry too and do it myself at odd times. And yes, domestic violence is utterly unacceptable. Abusers should stop it right away and get help in stopping. Anyone who finds themselves being victimized should get out of that situation and be safe. And yes, unhealthy repression of emotions, as men are sometimes want to do, is unhealthy. Men, let it out in reasonable ways. Come see me. We'll talk and then slap each other on the back. See, some of us have gotten the message. And yes, I'm even going to say what some of you are thinking right now. If men in this country have gotten the message, why is a presidential candidate whose attitude toward and track record with women is reprehensible won 2 out of the last 3 elections? I don't know. It's a mystery to me too. I'm certainly not saying that all men are wonderful. And yet, I want you to notice the approach. Right? Step number 1, name a man who has done something terrible. Step number 2, explain how this man's misdeeds fit into the historical patterns of patriarchy, misogyny, and toxic masculinity. Step number 3, glare at any male who happens to be around and ask them what they are going to do about this historical pattern. To which most men make kind of this sort of gesture and find some excuse to walk away. Or, if no one is looking right at them, they might roll their eyes like I did a few weeks ago. What I think was happening to me in that moment is that I realized how tired I am of that pattern. I'm both exhausted and jaded by it. What I want to hear are positive examples of men, role models who live a sort of life I might aspire to. And what I would like to do with the rest of this sermon is use 2 biblical texts to do just that. The first story is from 2 Samuel 23, 8-17. I'm pretty certain you've never heard this story read in a worship service before today. David had a very interesting life. He was a shepherd, then he gained fame by defeating Goliath, Then he joined the household of King Saul, where he gained a reputation as a warrior. Saul, who was not right in the head at that point, took David's success as a threat, and out of his jealousy and imagined grudge, determined to kill David. So David spent several years on the run, a fugitive with a small band of men. Finally, after Saul's death, David became king. The passage I'm going to read is a retrospective about some of his comrades, the so-called three mighty men. As happens with fish stories and war stories, it's possible there's a little exaggeration here, but let's take it for what it is. These are the names of the warriors whom David had. This first one's a tough one. Josheb Basabeth, a Tashishanite. He was the chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 800 whom he killed at one time. Next to him among the three warriors was Eleazar, son of Dodo, son of Ahoy. He was with David when they defied the Philistines, who were gathered there for battle. The Israelites withdrew, but he stood his ground. He struck down the Philistines until his sword arm grew weary, though his hand clung to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day. Then the people came back to him, but only to strip the dead. Next to him was Shammah, son of Agi, the Hararite. The Philistines gathered together at Lehi, and there was a plot of ground full of lentils, and the army fled from the Philistines. But he took a stand in the middle of the plot, defended it, and killed the Philistines, and the Lord brought about a great victory. Toward the beginning of harvest, 3 of the 30 chiefs went down to join David at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rahaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was at Bethlehem. David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 warriors broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and brought it to David. But he would not drink it. He poured it out to the Lord, for he said, "The Lord forbid that I should do this. Can I drink the blood of men who went at risk of their lives?" Therefore, he would not drink it. The 3 warriors did all these things. Now, you know that I am a man who prays for peace week after week. And yet I love this story of warriors. The friendship and loyalty described touches something in me. I am also inspired by the prowess and power these 3 wielded. And here's the key. I noticed how they used it. They used it in the service of love. Now, I have no doubt that they were showing off, but they loved David. And when he declared his desire for that sweet water, they determined to get it for him. So in what was probably a stupid move, they go get it. It's only a good story because they got away with it and made it back. Now, look at what David did. He could have acted entitled, taken the water, drunk it, and thanked his men. That would have been a small-minded and short-sighted way to acknowledge their courage and the gift they brought at great price. Don't ever take relationships for granted. So he pours out the water as a drink offering to the Lord. He channels their devotion to him into religious devotion and to something higher and better. He also disincentivizes them from repeating this dumb move, while implicitly recognizing their courage and skill at arms, as well as their love for him. All in all, a good lesson in leadership. Now, I was talking to my wife about this sermon. She observed that where our culture used to celebrate strength and success, now we lift up weakness and even victimhood. Now, weaknesses need not be embarrassing. We all have them. And victimhood should definitely be acknowledged as justice is sought. But I don't know that either should be celebrated. Paul is trying to figure this out in his letter to the Philippians. He's got some things he wants to say to that church. He's worried about conflict in the congregation. He also knows that some people have showed up teaching a different doctrine than Paul himself had told them when he helped found the church. Paul's credibility is in question. Why? Because he's in prison, under arrest. He can't go and see them. And some people might think it was shameful that he was in prison and decide to just tune him out for that reason alone. So he makes a similar move that David did. He takes the spotlight off himself and moves it on to God. In chapter 1, he has this paragraph, verses 12 through 14. I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually resulted in the progress of the gospel, so that it has become known throughout the entire imperial guard and to everyone else that my imprisonment is for Christ. And most of the brothers and sisters, having been made confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, dare to speak the word with greater boldness and without fear. Did you notice the way Paul is bearing hardship and in the way that that is then inspiring other Christians? We know that Christians are not exempt from trials and suffering, but God can redeem suffering, turn it to a better purpose, fold it in with God's larger plan. In chapter 2, Paul gets much more explicit with his hopes for the way Christians in Philippi and how the church can learn from the way that Christ handled power. Let's start with the famous Christ hymn from Philippians 2, 6 through 8, where Paul explains that. Although Jesus existed in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God as something to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, assuming human likeness, and being found in appearance as a human, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. What's my simple-minded definition of toxic masculinity? It's using whatever power you have to abuse or exploit those weaker than you while simultaneously gratifying your own ego. That power might be muscular, or economic, or intellectual, or political, or professional. All power can be used in multiple ways. You can do good with it, or you can do evil with it. You can show contempt, or you can show love. Jesus had more power than any of us can possibly imagine, literally being God. Vain, petty, and evil human beings desperately want to pretend that they are God, and we do terrible things to indulge that fantasy, to seek that feeling of power. But what did Jesus do with his power? He set it aside, emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, and was obedient to God in our service and for our salvation. To me, this is what men should aspire to, healthy masculinity. We use whatever power and ability we have to serve other people, to be faithful to our God. And yes, I know that this is in no way exclusive to men. I'm really talking about healthy humanity as much as healthy masculinity. But remember my theme. Instead of just pointing out male misdeeds, we should give men positive images and archetypes to aspire to. And that's what I'm about today. Why is this an especially important message in 2024? Because I keep reading articles about how young men and boys are not doing well in our country. I know this can be a little hard to believe. If you imagine our economy as a pyramid, there's still a cadre of men up at the very tippy top, a level where there really is a glass ceiling which women find it difficult to enter. But let's leave that rarefied air and consider the far more common situation. Boys and men these days are less likely than girls and women to achieve educationally. They're less likely to get married. Their economic prospects are not as good. I'm not qualified to give a detailed commentary on all the causes of this, but I'll mention a couple of broad points. Many children are raised without fathers in their home, or perhaps even in their life at all. You compound that with the decreasing numbers of male educators and good male role models for boys are in short supply. Additionally, we've lost cultural markers and expectations for what it means to be a man. We live in a society that celebrates individual choice. There is much that is commendable about that. But as we lift up individuality, we lose commonality. When I was growing up, there was more. Getting a driver's license was kind of the first marker, followed by graduation, then either college or work, getting your own place, marriage, children. Some of those are still in play. Some have changed quite a bit. My sense is that they are now viewed less as norms and more as options. We have lost cultural cohesion about many, many things, and definitely about manhood. And I'm concerned about that. While I do not want oppressive structures, I also think that an overabundance of choice is not good for us as human beings, especially as boys and girls. We need a certain amount of structure to thrive. Now, what can I do about all of this? Perhaps not much. It always feels awkward to be a preacher on Father's Day when one is not a father. And I lament that I spend very little time with children. But I can reflect on life, make observations, and give the final word to the Bible. Here's what Paul says in Philippians 2:12 through 18. Therefore, my beloved, just as you have always obeyed me, not only in my presence, but much more now in my absence, work on your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who is at work in you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. Do all things without murmuring and arguing, so that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, in which you shine like stars in the world, holding forth the word of life, so that I can boast on the day of Christ that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. But even if I am being poured out as a libation over the sacrifice and service of your faith, I rejoice, and I rejoice together with all of you. In the same way, you should rejoice and rejoice together with me. There you have it. Paul has a vision for a Christ-centered future where people work together to develop the power that God has given them for the benefit of the church and the world. This will all only happen if we work together, respecting one another's gifts. In the past, we used to expect women to be less so that men could be more. We are no better off now if we expect men to be less so that women can be more. So let's endorse Paul's godly vision of a Christ-centered future where people work together to develop the power that God has given them for the benefit of the church and the world, both men and women. Amen, my friends. God bless.